and from around the world. I hope everyone is as excited as I am about the rich session we are about to have today. Now, with the introduction, moving on to our program. As per the agenda, we are now into the introduction. I would like to first extend a warm welcome to all optometry students joining in across Africa, the optometrists that have set aside their time on a Monday evening to join us, and a warm welcome to our distinguished guests who are on the panel for tonight's discussion, as well as Dr. Diane, who will be anchoring and chairing the discussion for us today. Greetings to Dr. Adaku and Dr. Levi. Thank you all for joining. Now, before I go any further, I will first introduce myself. My name is Aphelele Madikiza. I am a third-year optometry student from the University of the Free State in South Africa. From the University of the Free State in South Africa. I am the current president of the AFOS 2024, and I am honored to be here today and get a chance to be a part of such an organization such as AFOS. I serve alongside a wonderful and hardworking executive team coming from different corners of Africa, namely the Vice President, Mr. Nathaniel Amobeng from the University of Cape Coast from Ghana, the Secretary from the University of Benin in Nigeria, Ms. Chinelo Goodness Ikeli, the Treasurer, Nwakiro Ijeoma from Federal University of Technology in Nigeria as well, our publicity leader, Chance Gumwenda, he's from Malawi, and our welfare director, Benedicta Ehan from the University of Cape Coast. And I wanted to add that today's amazing graphics were compiled by Mr. Daniel from Nigeria as well. Now, AFOS is an acronym that stands for African Federation of Optometry Students. AFOS was founded by Dr. Levi, and it was launched on the 30th of March in 2024, where 2 student representatives from each university across Africa were chosen to be a part of the group. Thereafter, the above-mentioned executive team was elected on the 11th of May in 2024. Just to give a few organizations that AFOS has had an introductory meeting with or has talks of future collaborations. We've had an introductory meeting with the student president and student vice president of the American Academy of Optometry. We also had a meeting with FOSH International, where we are currently underway with reviving the student chapters in the different universities across Africa in order for the universities to carry out local missions. We had a meeting with Africademics and with the AFCO preceding the AFCO conference, which was held in Uganda. We had a meeting also with the AFCO, and we had talks of sponsorship and future collaborations as well. We now, our upcoming sessions that we have a meeting with the IAPB, which is the International Association of Prevention of Blindness, on the 8th of October. So students can just watch out on our social medias platform, and also the professionals as well, if they would like to join. So AFOS is a platform that aims to create a tight-knit community of optometry students across Africa. It is for the students and led by the students in order to drive positive change and address emerging needs in optometry education and practice across Africa. Optometry education across Africa faces many challenges, like uneven access to quality education. We have limited resources, varying levels of technological advancement, just to name a few. So these issues highlight the need for enhanced practical training, exposure to diverse clinical cases, and better networking opportunities for students. So all in all, AFOS seeks to bridge these gaps. And the benefits for an optometry student in becoming an AFOS member, just to name a few, it is to network with each other across the different optometry universities. It's educational resources such as what we have today, workshops and seminars, advocacy and representation, leadership skill development, as well as mentorship. Now, AFOS, our core mission as AFOS includes fostering collaboration among the students, It is fostering collaboration among students, empowering each other, and building each other up. Just in closing, for my speech, I will just quote a quote by my favorite public figure, Nelson Mandela, and it says, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." So today, this to me means that the knowledge that you are going to receive today is that you must not only use it for your change in your own life, but also it is going to, yes, redirect you and realign you with where you were ordained to be. But the knowledge shared today will also change the lives of those around you in the near future when your dream of becoming an optometrist is finally realized. So take this information and take this knowledge today and combine it with your passion. But most importantly, remember to work hard towards achieving the dream. Work hard towards achieving your dream because it is the sole thing that might just change someone's life one day. Next on our agenda, I just want to go back and just show the agenda again. We will have just an overview of the World Sight Day by Dr. Adaku. I don't know if Dr. Adaku is present, and I'll just hand over just now. Dr. Adaku, are you maybe having any issues with the connectivity or? Okay. All right, we can address it later on in the stage if Dr. Oh, yeah, I think Dr. Adaku will address the World Sight Day and give us information on that later on. But now, can I just right now moving to the discussion that will be chaired by Dr. Diane van Staden. Thank you so much, Dr. Diane, for this time that you're about to give us, and we are very expectant of the knowledge that we are about to receive. Dr. Diane van Staden is an associate professor of optometry and host of the Life Beyond Clinical Practice podcast. Her career spans public health, international development, and higher education. Dr. Diane is passionate about people development. She completed a postdoc fellowship in health professions education, and through her podcast, now inspires health professionals to pursue purposefully aligned careers so that they can have greater impact in their fields. Over to you, Dr. Diane. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Apelele, and it's wonderful to be able to chair this session, and I'm so grateful to the panelists who've agreed to participate and share their career insights in optometry. I don't know if I can share my presentation. It's not going to be long, but I just wanted to give an overview. Let's just see. Sorry, let me just get to presentation mode. Okay, so a little bit about why I started. Thank you for the introduction. So it gets me skipping a slide. Why I started Life Beyond Clinical Practice and subsequently was invited to do this. I have spent the last 15 plus years of my career in health professions education or optometry education specifically. And over the course of my career, I've made a couple of observations that have led me to the work I now do. One is that in my time as an academic and a lecturer, I noticed that we were missing something. There was a one-size-fits-all training model, and we were not looking at the person behind the profession. And I found many students and graduates lacked a passion for optometry. And in reflecting on that, I knew that there was a way in which we could somehow marry what they were passionate about with the profession of optometry, which has so many unmet needs in building professional fulfillment, impact, influence to shape and grow the work of optometry globally. And I thought I needed a platform where I could help people see that whether you're in clinical practice or want to pursue a career outside of clinical practice, that there are opportunities for you to align what you're interested in, what your innate strengths, interests, or abilities are with the work that you can do in the professional of optometry. Personally, I went through a phase of being professionally misaligned, and honestly, that was probably the worst time in my career, where you don't even want to wake up in the morning and do the work that you have to do in that particular role. And so I'm very passionate about professional alignment in the field of optometry so that we can grow and scale the work that is before us, particularly as African optometrists. And the tragedy of misalignment in healthcare careers is really that, healthcare practitioners or clinicians show up to work with no passion, no zeal. It's no longer an act of service. It becomes a job or a paycheck. And subsequently, the patients and the health system suffers. So that's something we cannot turn a blind eye to as optometrists. And we have to address this issue of how do we marry what we're passionate about and what we are naturally good at with our profession and serve in those capacities. So today we're going to have a wide range of I invited 5 panelists who will talk about their career journeys, who are all optometrists, started as clinical optometrists and each found their niche and are now making an impact in a particular area of eye care. So I'd like to welcome today our first panelist, who's Reshma Parmanand, who is an optometrist who branched out into executive leadership in optometry, I think quite early on when I was just making my way out of clinical optometry and into the development space. I encountered Reshma and I found her to be an exceptional leader. So Reshma, thank you very much. I know you're on a time crunch today. I want to welcome you and invite you to share with the audience today a little bit about your career journey. What inspired you to take the path of sort of business operations, executive leadership in the eye care space, and what inspired you to do that, how you grew your own career, and some insights you can share with the audience about opportunities in the spaces in which you now work. Over to you, Reshma.
Thank you very much, Diane. I hope I'm audible enough.
Yes.
First off, thank you very much for that introduction. And I'm humbled to be here today. And thank you to AFOS. Great to see that this forum is now developed, particularly for Africa, but also not just from South Africa. I happen to be from South Africa as well, but for the continent as a whole. So I think, just to echo, I think misalignment in career is soul destroying for the individual, but also in optometry in particular becomes a loss to the health system. So I think it was really good that you're kicking off your first kind of webinar with this discussion. So I landed in optometry by default, and basically I had applied to be a pharmacist a long time ago, and application was lost, and I ended up in optometry. So in my first few years of being in clinical practice, and I really only spent very few years working for someone in private practice, I immediately realized that that was not something that I was passionate about. I was passionate about giving the vision, giving the gift of sight, but I wasn't passionate about running an optometry practice. There's nothing wrong with doing that. If that's where your passion is, there's a time and place for that. It wasn't for me. So while I was working in this private practice, I started doing clinical work for an NGO called St. John Ambulance. They're UK based and they had a branch in KZN. From there, I had an exceptionally good mentor. And I'll just pause to say, finding the right mentor early on in your career or just someone to talk to who has experience is critically important. This particular lady who's late now, After working there for a few years, I would engage with her over lunch, and she was the director of St. John's. She said to me, Reshma, you know, clinical practice is not for you. I think you really should go into management. And so one thing led to another. I enrolled for a master's in business administration and immediately got a job as I was writing my dissertation with a new growing international NGO. So in some ways, you can say I was quite fortunate because very early on, I got that exposure. And so over the much more than 15 years now, probably 20 years on, I've worked for large international eye care NGOs. I'm sure IAPB, if you go onto their website, you'll see names like the Brian Holden Vision Institute. When I worked for them, which is where I met Diana, and I developed a friendship and worked as colleagues, was called the International Center for Eye Care Education. I went on to work for Orbis, which was an ophthalmology NGO out of New York. And it took me from looking at optometry and vision care from a broader lens, looking at the whole sector around vision, and then moved on to another American NGO called OneSight. And currently I'm with the Fred Hollows Foundation. But in that career span, I was in senior executive all the time. I found my work very rewarding. And I think that, you know, as I said, that having that misalignment is not good for anyone. Now, I don't know, Diane, if you want to do the other panels or you want me to talk a little bit about opportunities and how that could go.
Yeah, maybe you can go on, Reshma, and talk
Okay.
about opportunities you see from where you're at in the eye care space.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, the space, number one is to identify what your passion is. I think there are a lot of people in private practice that run exceptionally good private practices, do exceptional clinical work. But just a caution, you know, there is a difference between being an optometrist and only doing refraction. I haven't been in the academic space for a while, so I'm not sure what the universities are teaching now. But when I was in university, you know, the training was very much around doing a full clinical refraction, but there's so much more. So that's one opportunity. It obviously wasn't for me. In the development space, I would say that the opportunities that lie there is post your optometry degree is to really do some sort of course that teaches you a little bit around the development sector, if that's where you feel your passion lies, or a public health master's. I have neither, but I think that's just because I relied on, as I said, very early on, pretty much when I turned 30, if not earlier, I had exposure to the development sector, so the hands-on experience helped me. But, you know, for young students that I'm talking to, I think one of those 2 degrees or postgraduate courses will be good. There is a lot of opportunity around program development, strategy development, managing projects, working with hospital partners to strengthen how they deliver eye health services. 20 years later, the environment has changed. I'm seeing a lot more now than when I started around how healthcare systems are actually built to meet vision care. When I started, it was very much a vertical program and seen for the privileged. So even to get a post in public health in our hospitals for optometrists was not even heard of. So, you know, that's shifted quite a lot. That said, I think there's huge opportunities to work with clinicians to actually show them how important optometrists can be, but also to be unselfish. I mean, the scope of practice is important. What I mean about unselfish is if we put the patient first, then in order to meet the growing demand of literally billions of people that need eye care, we have to be unselfish, which means that we shouldn't be protective. No, I'm an optometrist. I studied for 4 years. And so only I'm allowed to do this. Technology is changing. And I think that's where the huge opportunity for young optometrists lie, in how do we make use of technology to enhance the work that we can do as frontline healthcare professionals, so that the burden on tertiary level, so what ophthalmologists are trained to do, which is surgery, treat complicated cases, be available for emergency cases like trauma to the eye. How do we use technology and our own experience to really reduce the stress on that third level? And my last one would be, the pandemic has shown us that no matter how many professionals we train, we will not be able to meet the demand if we continue to look at how we meet the demand just by churning out professionals. Technology has a huge place to play, and sharing of scope of practice is critical. Now, we know mass voices is what helps drive change. So the more of us that can have this dialogue with professional associations, the better it will be. I find my work extremely fulfilling because I think giving the gift of sight, when we know, if you look at stats, I saw you all speaking to International Agency for Blindness Prevention in a week's time, you will see the stats on the website of the power of vision, the impact it has on education, the impact it has on older people. And in order to meet universal health coverage, which is the key indicator for public health around the world, WHO has come out, or World Health Organization has come out to say it cannot be done if we do not look at vision care, and in particular spectacles. There isn't a better opportunity for optometrists than there is right now. And my experience says that this wave of opportunities goes in years of 5. So for the next 5 years, this is a huge opportunity, and then there'll be a next wave. At the moment, it's all about spectacles. A few years ago, it was all about blinding trachoma. So I'll stop there because we have other extremely experienced panelists to speak. I hope I've left you with some inspiring words. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Reshma. Those were definitely, I love that sort of broad brushstrokes based on your experience in the sector. And, just to say, Reshma and I have worked in different parts of Africa over the course of our careers, and the amount of opportunity that there is to impact and influence, the delivery and expansion of access to eye care, and whether it's technological innovation, training across the different arms, is just unbelievable. There's enough work for all of us to do. And, just off what Reshma has said, is finding what you want to do. What are you passionate about? What area of optometry or addressing healthcare needs in the eye care space do you want to make an impact in? And then carving out a path for yourself, because even though you will encounter challenges, but when you're passionate about something, you'll push through those challenges, find solutions, and the reward that comes with stepping back and seeing the impact of your work is priceless. So our next guest then will be, let me just see, I don't know if Rudine is here. I haven't seen her name on the guest list. Rudine, are you with us today?
Oh,
yes, no? Okay, we were meant to have...
Yeah, she will join a bit later.
A bit later. Okay, so we can move on to the next guest then. Sorry, I just need to sort out my screen here, who is, I don't think, a stranger to any of us on this platform today. The beloved Mr. Obi Malope. You all know him as Obi. I know his real name. I won't say his real name. But Obi, thank you so much for being part of this. I know you are a very, very busy man in the optometry space on the African continent. And when I reached out to you, I said, Obi, you're always telling everybody else's stories. we need to tell your story about how you got into what you do and the impact you're now making, which is even beyond the borders of the African continent. So just for the record, I met Obi when he was still a student. So we've come a very long way together. And it's been so rewarding watching his journey. And I think he has incredible insights to share with us. He's now making impact in the training space, business strategy, media, and I know he's supporting AFOS in their efforts. So Obi, over to you. Share a little bit about your career journey and how it is you got to do the work that you do now that you are visibly so passionate about. And then what opportunities you see for young optometrists who maybe want to break into a similar space. Thank you. Still muted, Obi.
Thank you very much, Dr. Diane. Good evening, good morning, everyone. What a great honor and a privilege to be able to be part of this tremendous platform and conference, because I see this as the start of many, many great and wonderful, extraordinary things that are going to come out of AFOS. The industry truly, truly needed this. And it's actually surprising and shocking that it's only now that we are able to have something like this. And based on what the senior leadership has been doing of the African chapter over the last year or so, there's a wave that has shifted in eye care. Everyone has their eyes focused on Africa. And there's never been a time to be in eye care like in Africa right now. So what a great honor and privilege it is for me to witness it, because 20 years ago, I found myself doing first year optometry school at University of the Free State. And when I got into that space, I too, optometry was something that I never planned to do. I wanted to be a soccer player, was very, very good at playing soccer. But due to life circumstances, I found myself in eye care. And the class that I was in was a bunch of amazing young kids, basically, from different backgrounds, communities, different races, different genders. And because optometry was never a choice for me, I really felt like I did not belong in that space, first and foremost. I honestly felt like I did not belong in that space. Secondly, I did not have the resources to be able to be in that space. So the logical thing that I was able to do for myself back then was then to say, okay, I managed to get access into this amazing course, but I don't have the finances or the resources to be able to go through optometry school. So my first job in eye care came about first year, first semester in an optometry practice working as a student. And I kept doing that throughout my schooling career as an optometry student. And the fortunate thing that happened for me was that I got to work in a multitude of optometric practices from my first year of optometry school. So South Africa has got 9 provinces, and I am based in the central part of South Africa. And I decided in my first year of optometry that I'm going to firstly find out where are my classmates from. So if I could get to the holidays and visit some of my classmates and get to work where they are coming from in the other provinces, that's something that I would do. If not, I intentionally went out of my way to get to know people who are already in the industry, who are 10 years older than me, 15 years older than me. And I started pestering them everywhere they were going. Social media wasn't in existence really back then. LinkedIn was not even in existence. And so if you had an opportunity to meet someone somewhere, you would stay very close to that amazing person that would inspire you, motivate you. And so I attended my first eye care conference with my awesome friend, Shireen, in first year. And when we got to the South African Optometric Association conference in that year, 2004, we were the only students at the entire conference. And when I got to that particular conference, remember I had been working as a student in different optometric practices. So now I'm at this conference and I got to see optometry beyond the classroom, beyond the few practices that I was exposed to. I got to see who's who in the industry. I got to be exposed to different leaders. And so when I went to the conference, I had a notebook and I was writing down contact details of the person. I did not just want the business card. I would literally write where they practice, if they have a email address, I would get that. If they have a website, and I would Google them basically at the time. And that is how I started building a network of industry leaders that could be part of my community. And I learned something as a young optometry student, was that we see patients from different backgrounds, different age groups when they come to our examination rooms or at the clinic at the time. So I then decided, let me not build relationships with people that look like me. Let me expose myself to people that are completely different from me, that have got different perspectives, viewpoints pertaining to the industry. So when I was starting out as a young student, I was really, really intentional by forming quality relationships with different people from different communities and so forth. And I had this notebook, Dr. Diane, I had this notebook that I kept on writing every single thing that I was learning. I realized that patients that come to our exam rooms, they speak different languages. So if I'm in a particular community, I'm not going to only see people that speak one language. So let me learn languages. Because I'm learning, meeting people in my network who are coming from different cultures, learn different cultures. And that helped me when I then qualified as an optometrist. I could be able to work anywhere at any given point in time. Because why? I built the relationships, I built the network. And whenever I was in practice as a student, I used to walk around with my Kodak camera and take pictures of me being in the exam room. And when I got to third year, at the time, no one knew what websites were for students, let alone eye care professionals. So I had this one pager of a website that showcased the different practices that I worked in as a student. So when I qualified, to cut the long story short, I could not find a particular practice that would be able to be ideal for me. So the first opportunity that I identified was needed was working as a traveling optometrist. And what did that entail? Because I'm going from practice to practice, or I was going from practice to practice as a student, my notebook then had a heading on it: what makes the ideal optometric practice? So I would learn, why is that particular practice doing well? Why is that one doing well? Why is that practice doing exceptionally bad versus that one that is doing exceptionally well? What does that practice have that the other one does not have, and so forth? So I used to just put down all this information together and then decided I'm going to be a traveling optometrist and be able to then take all these principles, these strategies that I've learned from different environments and apply it at the next environment. I did that for about 2.5 years, and I qualified in 2008 or 9, I think. And then there came about a period of about 2 years where I had identified what I felt were the top 100 optometric practices in the country at the time. And so I went and said to myself, I've been practicing optometry for 2.5 years, but I'm not so clued up on hard contact lenses. I'm not so clued up on low vision. I'm not so clued up on pathology. And so for about 2 years, I then decided I'm going to work free of charge. And I put that in inverted commas because I wanted to expose myself. So in this 2-year cycle, I made the biggest sacrifice that I could at the time. And I decided, let me go spend 3 months in a practice that specializes in contact lenses, especially hard contact lenses at the time. The terminology back then was not necessarily around specialty contact lenses. It was more about hard contact lenses or orthokeratology at the time. Then I would spend another 3 months with someone that does pediatric optometry. I would spend 2 months with someone who specializes in pathology and so forth. After the 2 years, I realized that there's so much that was lacking in optometric practice, in the sense that there wasn't a lot of investment that is being put by optometric business owners into training and development of their teams, into upskilling the team that's within the optometric practice. Because what I realized was that a lot of optometrists are very quick at investing in themselves, making sure that they can be able to provide the necessary competency skills that are required in their practices, but they don't bring their teams along with them on that journey of excellence. And so I started realizing that I would knock on doors to say, can I come and do staff training? Can I come and be part of business development in your business? And everyone kept on saying no. Every single business that I wanted to work in to be able to have that role kept on saying, I don't have enough experience. That will not work in South Africa. There is no market for that. And so I then decided, with all this knowledge that I've gained through being exposed to a multitude of optometric practices, put resources together, put a business case together that can be able to help optometric practices be able to reach high levels of excellence, revenue growth. And we started by focusing on optometric staff and then building it from optometric staff to then say, wait a minute, what else influences a successful optometric practice or business? Oh, they're marketing. Oh, sales is not something that people are focusing on. So let's learn about sales so that we can come and implement it in eye care. Oh, what else are people not accustomed to in the eye care space? Continuous learning is specialized or focused on eye care professionals in terms of optometrists and ophthalmologists, but not so much the optometric staff. And so I can't reach everyone as quickly and as effectively as I can. So let's build online resources so that people from anywhere in South Africa at the time can be able to access the work that we feel they need to know. And so in a nutshell, over the years, that's how my eye care journey was evolving. It was basically influenced by what I was exposing myself to. And the more I exposed myself, the more I realized that, wait a minute, there is something that is lacking in the industry at any given point in time. And so that exposure helped me then to harness my skills. That exposure enabled me to then realize that, wait a minute, these are the problems that are facing the eye care industry. And currently, there's a limited resource available in providing solutions to those problems. And so I literally raised my hand and I said, if people don't have access to these solutions, let me then provide them with the necessary solutions. And as a summary, my eye care journey has simply been evolving because of the exposure that I've been allowing myself to go through, even up until now. If I realize that the world's attention based on the eye care community is on Africa, how do we harness that? How do we expose more of what African optometrists and students are doing so that the global eye care community can be able to see that, wait a minute, if we want to grow to the next level, we cannot do it without eye care professionals on the African continent. And so one thing that I would like to encourage the students that have joined us on this amazing day is ask yourself the following 3 questions. Number 1, am I exposing myself to different aspects of eye care beyond the classroom? And if so, what is my level of investment towards that exposure? What am I doing once I'm exposed to then say, okay, how do I translate that to an opportunity? What resources do I need? What am I lacking? Where do I see the gaps? And what type of support do I need? Number 2, position yourself in a manner in which you can attract opportunities beyond your wildest imagination. I get shocked today when I sometimes talk to young people and you ask them, okay, you almost done with your optometry studies. You're going to come into the marketplace right now. Who are the 5? What are your interests? Are you interested in visual therapy? Are you interested in pediatrics? What are your interests? And if you have interests, who are the leaders who are specializing in that particular competency area that you have built relationships with? And so the second thing for me is put yourself in an opportunity to attract the necessary opportunities that can change your life. And thirdly, something that I would like to leave with you is make what you do count. That has always been my tagline from the time I was still a student. Has always been, Obi, no matter what I'm busy with or how small it may be, make what I do count. Don't just do it as by the way. And it goes back to even being in the clinic, helping a patient that comes from an underprivileged society or community who comes there needing eye care services from you as a student. That patient, you have to have this approach that you are going to change their life. And so be conscious about making what you do count. And so those are the three things that I wanted to just lay as a backdrop as we get going with this amazing evening. Thank you, Dr. Diane.
Awesome, Obi. Thank you so much. Yeah, there was so many nuggets packed into what you just said. And the three things I want to pull out of there is, one, opportunity is all around us, but you've got to be curious and you've got to be bold enough to go after those opportunities and to create your own opportunities if need be.
Absolutely.
And don't listen to the naysayers. Obi will tell you I was a naysayer in his early days. He was such an eager young optometrist and he wanted to do all of these things. And I'm like, Obi, calm down. Who are you? You know, there's big players in this industry. Who's going to listen to you? You know, I had to repent of saying those things. And today I'm so proud. But the lesson there is you've got to believe in yourself and in the solutions you believe are needed to the problems, challenges, or opportunities you see in the spaces around you. And Obi, it for me is testament of doing just that. And when you do that and you serve with passion, you serve unselfishly, the opportunities just keep coming. I think in one of the last webinars we said, life has a way of making space for people who know where they are going. Obi was very clear about the impact he wanted to make in the industry, and I think we can all see, you know, where that's taken him. So that for me, as someone who was his mentor, his teacher, very early on in this profession, I sit back with such pride to see how he pushed forward relentlessly, regardless of the opposition he may have faced. And so I think Obi's story also feeds nicely. I'm going to skip to our next panelist, Sanele Buthelezi, who I invited, who's a young optometrist, I think 10 years post-graduation, but really making waves in academia. And the reason I think his story follows very nicely after Obi's is, and he'll tell you a bit about how he got into academia and what he's doing now with his career, is because very early on in clinical practice, he identified something he faced that was a challenge for him, which he created into an opportunity to pivot and grow his career. So over to you, Sanele. Thank you.
Yes, hi, morning. What time is it again? Is it morning, evening? I don't know.
It's all times of day wherever we are.
All times of day today, exactly. Yes. Yes, well, good evening on my side. It's currently, I think it's about 7 o'clock now. My name is Usanele Buthelezi, and it's great to see some familiar faces as well as some familiar names. So I'm quite excited about that. So, you know, Diane invited me, I think, about 2 weeks back, and Diane and I go way back. It's about 10 years ago, actually, the first time I met Diane. She was my lecturer at the time back at UKZN when I did my optometry, first degree optometry, and I finished that back in 2017, which then led me into clinical practice. So just, you know, how I got to where I am at the moment. So currently I work as a lecturer at the University of Johannesburg, where I lecture in subjects such as dispensing optometry and optics, you know, so that side of it. But mainly I do lots and lots of research on the issues of cultural diversity, you know, cultural inclusion, cultural safety, which is now part of my PhD at this point in time. Right. So I completed my undergrad again in 2017 back at UKZN. And as I joined clinical practice, I was obviously placed in various parts of South Africa, and we do know that South Africa is a very diverse country. And, you know, back, I think in 2019, just before, you know, the pandemic started, I was working rather in the Cape Winelands, which is a very, very nice, picturesque town, city, just I think about an hour away from Cape Town. But you know, at the time, or still is, it's a very much predominantly white community. So you find that I think, one of the only few Black optometrists in that particular town, working there and seeing patients, coming into my chair and trying to provide, some form of patient-centered care in any shape or form that I could, to the patients I presented to my chair at that time. So, and as I reflected back at the time, I remember texting Diane and telling her that, listen, this is where I am. And I'm not sure if, my undergrad UKZN prepared me enough to sort of deal with the type of patients that I was seeing at the time, right? So, we do have a lot of, conscious and unconscious bias, prejudice, issues of racism that are sort of taking place. And I think, at the time, even still now, those are conversations that are still quite lacking. And sometimes we tend to shy away from those conversations. It's conversations that we tend to sort of, push under the rug and just sort of try to focus on the clinical care, but rather now, not necessarily seeing the patient as a whole, and then how does that now affect patient care? So, which then led me to my master's, which was focusing on, the issues of cultural competence at the time, and then how do, lecturers, how prepared are they to now produce, optometrists who strive towards cultural competence, who strive towards creating a safe space for their patients, taking into account the social factors, taking into account the financial factors, or all the socioeconomic factors, into now providing, eye care. So then that's where my master's research went, and I think that opened up, a huge gap, or rather knowledge gap, into what research was being conducted in optometry. And I realized that, not a lot of optometrists were researching on issues related to culture. We tend to focus on the vision science, which again is quite necessary, because again, we do need statistics, we do need epidemiologists, statistics in an African context. But now looking at the patient's lived experiences, looking at the academics' lived experiences, and even also the students' lived experiences as well, was, that type of research that was lacking at that point in time. So I've sort of tried to now develop my own niche, for lack of a better term, where I sort of situate my research career into the issues that are related to cultural safety, cultural competence, diversity and inclusion, within the eye care space, which, is still quite lacking. But again, we are still making strides, and slowly but surely we are, getting there, basically. So I think for now I'll leave it at that, and then we can then talk to that later on. Thank you, Diane.
Wonderful. Perfect. Thanks, Sanele. And your story is it's such an important example to me of sort of things we haven't even addressed, haven't even thought about as potential issues when we think about how we train optometrists or train health professionals. Certainly in optometry on the African continent, things like cultural competence has not featured on our radar. But you used your personal experience to carve out a niche, such a critical niche, to equipping the next generation of students. Can I ask everybody just to mute their microphones, please, so there's no interference when we're speaking? But you used your personal experience of feeling ill-equipped to deal with diverse patients groups to now build a scholarly career and inform how we train optometrists. So just to draw out the lessons from Sanele's experience. So wherever you are, look around you. What are the gaps? What are you struggling with that you feel there isn't an answer to yet? And how can you be part of finding the answer, developing the solutions to that challenge? So thank you for that,
you are muted, Diane, so I'm not sure if you're saying anything.
Sorry, I was clicking the wrong button. I said I was gonna, did you miss everything that I just said?
Yes,
Or
we did
just
not
the
hear
last?
anything.
Oh my goodness. So to sum it
We had
up,
most of it, Diane, just towards
most
the
of it.
end. That's where we got lost.
Okay, wonderful. Just to encourage the audience today is what are you struggling with, or what have you seen as a challenge or a gap in your practice environment, if you're a student, in the educational journey that you've been on, and how can you be part of a solution, part of finding the solutions to better prepare the next generation or equip practicing optometrists with resources that will help them to better serve their community. So that was just the lesson I wanted to draw out. And then to welcome our next panelist, who I'll call on Rudine. I believe she's in the house with us today. Rudine, thank you for joining us and for making time to be part of this panel. I believe we crossed paths a number of years ago as well at the University of the Free State when you were doing some clinical sessions there and I was a lecturer. So wonderful to have a practicing optometrist who is now part of shaping optometry clinical practice in one of the very well-established groups in South Africa. So Rudine, tell us a little bit about your career journey in optometry, what inspires you to wake up and continue to do what you do on a daily basis, and what insights can you share with the group today on how they can influence optometry or find what they're passionate about and make an impact in this wonderful profession. Over to you. Thanks, Rudine.
Thank you, Dr. Diane. Yes, it is a wonderful profession. And after 21 years, I still love it every day. But it's very, very true. Something that Obi said is very true. And that is that I can only speak for the South African qualified optometrist. We are definitely, really a notch above the rest. If I talk about, European optometrists, I stand by that, we've got the best education in South Africa for our optometrists, and we are just on a different level, which is fantastic. And something that Sanele also mentioned is that you have to sort of find something that you are happy with and something that you are comfortable with. And the subject that he teaches at the university, dispensing, is such a big part of optometry, but you don't realize it when you're a student. You just think it's all about eyes and testing. And then when you get into practice and you get a comeback, which is a horrible word, and we never talk about that word, but you realize very quickly that it's got nothing to do with your refraction. It's nothing to do with your refraction. It's a lot of the times about dispensing. So it's fantastic to know that there is, people in the tertiary departments that's passionate about dispensing because it's so important. My journey, a lot of years ago, I started my optometry student days at the University of the Rand Afrikaans University, which is now the University of the UJ, of Johannesburg. And in our fourth year, we had an ophthalmologist that did a couple of classes for us, Dr. Van Niekerk. I don't think he's practicing anymore. And the last session we had with him at the end of the year, he said, we should do him a favor. And he said, be the best optometrist that you can be. Don't try to be an ophthalmologist. Don't try to be anything other than what you've studied for 4 years. Be a good optometrist. And that always stuck to me. So if you start working in practice and you're seeing patients, it's fantastic to venture out into contact lenses and to venture out into pediatrics, for instance. But a lot of those extra things that you can venture out into is based on your refraction. And that was always for me a fantastic thing. And I thought, but how can I be the best optometrist? How can I be the best person to give my patient the best vision when it comes to just spectacles? Don't have to go to contacts, don't have to go to sclerals. You can, it's fantastic if you can, but sometimes just how can I make the best glasses? How can I make someone see the best that they can with spectacles? And that was always very interesting for me. And in 2012, I was at the head of the first Zeiss experience practice in Africa. And that was a very interesting journey. And basically what it comes down to is just being an optometrist that really want to give the best refraction to start off with. So Zeiss prescription lenses gives a practice an opportunity to be a destination practice. So at the practice where I worked in Johannesburg, we saw a lot of people. People traveled from far to come to us because we could give them vision that no one else could. And I think that is sometimes just, as you said yourself, just look for that opportunity. It doesn't have to be a big thing in your life, but what is that one thing that you want to do? And then build your career around that and do something that affect other people. I had people and patients that flew down from Kenya that came to our practice just because they could get the best clarity that is possible, in the world at this stage, I would believe, in terms of spectacles. We had a lot of people coming down from Botswana, from Namibia, coming to Johannesburg to our practice. So it really became a destination store, just purely because of that. And I don't know, I do see that there are some of my student colleagues that work with our group as well on this call, but just a very quick overview on what description is that you've got lower order aberrations when we test in sphere, cell, and axis, and then you get higher order aberrations, right? And then what Zeiss description lenses is all about is combining these two things. And at the end of the day, giving the patient the best vision, especially in low light conditions. Now, you don't have to tell South Africans a lot about low lighting conditions. We find ourselves frequently in those type of environments. But on a serious note, it really does give the opportunity to build a practice that's very different. And it does give an opportunity really just to attract people from a very wide audience and say, but this is what my practice, can offer. So that's been really, really amazing. And there's so many things that one can talk about with that. But if I can maybe say to the students, just be the best optometrist and just love it every day, because you're giving vision, you're giving sight. And only when you meet someone that's lost it, only then you actually realize how fortunate we are with the work that we do. So thank you very much, Dr. Diane, for the opportunity, and all the best with your great venture.
Awesome.
That you've got going there.
Thank you so much, Rudine. That was so lovely. I remember, of course, I've been in clinical practice. I've trained lots of students, engaged lots of practitioners over the years. And what I loved about what you shared is that your practice found a way to sort of a niche area that they could impact and inspire and be unique in. And I found lots of optometrists that I engaged in who were feeling flat, lacking motivation or passion, is because they were just kind of doing what everybody else was doing. Or they had gotten tired of the day to day doing all of the same thing. They didn't have something that set their practice apart. And there's so many ways you can do that. Even if you want to focus on just being a pediatric optometrist, you can take an area of pediatric optometry, whether it's children with learning disabilities, and make that your niche and specialty. And then you work with occupational therapists or psychologists. And it just fuels that need for intellectual stimulation above the day-to-day sort of bread and butter stuff that we have to do in optometry. But find a way to set yourself apart. Carve out a niche, even if you're in clinical practice, something that's going to keep you engaged at the cutting edge, developing solutions, staying abreast of new developments, etc. And that is what will keep you inspired, because if sometimes the monotony of just going in and doing eye exams can get to clinicians, but how can you create that fire, that energy that just keeps you excited about going to work every day? So I love that. Find your niche, even if you're in clinical practice. What is the thing that can set you or your practice apart that's going to keep you passionate about what you're doing? So our next guest then that I'll welcome to share her career journey is Dr. Priya Mojaria. Priya, thank you so much for joining us. Priya's joining us all the way from London, and she's someone I and both Reshma have worked on, who's got quite an admirable career in optometry and a nice career journey and story to tell about how she's used her passion for development, optometry, public eye health, and technology to create solutions to addressing unmet eye care needs. So over to you. Thank you, Priya.
Thank you so much, Diane. I just want to say, hearing everyone's stories on here is left me so much more inspired that I think I need to do more now. It's so nice to see so many of you on this webinar as well. So firstly, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for everyone to take the time to sit and listen to our journeys as well. So much has already been shared, but I'll share a little bit about myself and then just a few things that I think helped me on this journey. So I grew up in East Africa, in Tanzania, and I grew up in a very small town where access to eye care wasn't possible, and I was severely myopic at a very young age. So there began my journey with vision and eyes. And I also lived with a grandfather who was blind, and he was blind because his cataract operation had gone wrong, and he had also developed glaucoma. So, vision and eye health were part of my life from a very young age. I didn't think I wanted to be an optometrist. I always thought I was going to be a journalist, actually, because I thought that I used to love reading and writing. So I thought I'm going to be a journalist. But my parents sent me off to the UK, and I don't think journalism was a career that they wanted me to pursue either. If any of you on here, if you come from any Asian or Indian sort of background, then you know that there's always pressure to either become a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, an accountant, some sort of professional that will earn you a good amount and put you in a stable career. However, little do my parents know that I wasn't going to stick to a 9-to-5 optometry job, and that was going to give me a steady income. So very quickly, I realized, I think within my first year of doing optometry, that I wanted to do something more. I didn't know what that more was. And listening to Mr. Obi Malope on here, I realized that we share some really interesting career paths as well. I started volunteering in my first year. I was new to the country and I didn't really know where and what to look at, but I started volunteering in optometry practices on weekends. I started looking for NGOs so that were dealing with patients that were blind or vision impaired. And I started thinking about what else I could do. So I finished my career, my graduation, I qualified. And then I realized that actually I was just an average clinician. I wasn't anything special. I was doing what all my other colleagues were doing, and I was doing it day in, day out. And it wasn't my passion. And I think I've heard that word from every single person that's spoken before me. Like, if once you find your passion, you are driven by something else. You're not driven by the money. You're not driven by you're driven by something very innate inside you. And so I started my journey then in 2006, looking for what else I could do. I came across a master's that was initially called Masters in Community Eye Health. And that was at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. So I wrote to them. I was in my third year, and I wrote to them and I said, I want to come do this master's. It sounds like exactly what I want to be doing. It's development, public health, eye care. And they wrote back to me and said no. They rejected me flat out. No considerations, no let's chat. And you can imagine I was quite disappointed because I thought I'd found my path. And they said, then I wrote back to them and said, let me come and see you. And so that's the other thing that I realized on this path, like persistence. You've got to be persistent. If you firmly believe in something, then you've just got to go for it. And it's not easy. It's absolutely not easy. So I went and visited them and convinced them that I do want to do this. Please consider me. And they said to me, come back after 3 years. And I said, I can't wait 3 years. What am I going to do in those 3 years? And they almost laughed at me and said, you have no experience. So they sent me off, and I started working on a normal high street practice. At that time in the UK, there was a chain of practices called Dolland and Aitchison that is now run by Boots Opticians. And I did a year in practice. I went from different practices and tried to get as much experience at that time. And I said to them, look, I want to volunteer. I want to come and do what you do. And so I went off with them as a quite a young, naive 21-year-old to Burkina Faso. And I stayed out there for quite a while. And then I went off to Malawi. And this is all between my job. I said to my employer that I need to do this. And so they gave me a bit of sabbatical. And in fact, they were quite understanding, and they helped fund some of my flights at that time. Because they understood that I had a passion for this, but I still kept coming back. And so I did all of that. And then I realized that I can't make a career out of just volunteering. As nice as it was, I went off to India for a little while. And then I went back to the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. And I said to them, look, I've done my volunteering, I've done experience in different places. Please let me apply. By then, 2 years had gone by. And so they said, okay, you can apply now. And by the time I'd start, it would be 3 years would have gone by. So I went back and then I got accepted. And I started the course, and that within that first week, I had cried so much. I thought, this is the worst decision I've made. I'm in a room full of people who are probably double my age, have so much more experience than me, have come to this master's with a purpose of going back to their countries to start working there, or are in NGOs, or work at Ministry of Health or university departments. And I don't know what I'm going to do after this. And so again, this idea of I don't know what I'm going to do was still there. Although I was enjoying the course, I thought, well, what am I going to do next? And so one piece of advice I have for everyone is sometimes by worrying about what the future is, you don't enjoy the moment. So I spent 3 or 4 months of my master's worrying about what I'd do later on, and didn't enjoy those first few months. It was only after my first semester that I thought, no, I actually want to do this. And so I finished the master's. I went to Kenya, lived there for a few months, did my research all in Kenya. I did a mapping of the refractive error services in Kenya. And then I thought, what do I do now? But the other thing that I say to everyone is find a mentor. Like, it's important you find a mentor early on, someone who you can trust, you can respect, and has your best interest at heart. So I found a mentor at the school. That was Professor Claire Gilbert. And she was wonderful. She came from a pediatric ophthalmology background, but she really wanted me to do well. And that was it. And so she encouraged me to do all sorts of trips. So, I mean, I met Diane, and I think I was just looking through my emails actually to find when this was, Diane, but I think it was 2011 in Mozambique. On one of my trips, that, what I would do is any opportunity that came to me, I'd just say yes. I didn't think about, where is it? What is it? Who is it with? I just wanted to get the experience. And so I kept doing that. And that was how I met Diane. I was in Mozambique. I was consultant by at that time, BHVI, ICE, and they'd hired me as a consultant as well to go to Mozambique. And so my career journey went through a lot of ups and downs. I had a lot of rejections. By 2014, and this is, I started in 2007, and by 2014, I realized I wanted to do a PhD, and 7 years had gone by, and I'd had multiple rejections. And so one thing I'd say to you is that just hold on to why you're doing what you do. Like, really hold on to that, because it can get really hard. And it realistically, you've got bills to pay. You can't keep on affording to just volunteer for free all the time. And that's what I was doing for a very long time. So I would locum here and there, and then that would fund my next few months. And then I'd locum again. Then I'd do a few consultancy roles. But I just believed on what I wanted to do. So once I started my PhD, which was focused on technology, and I work now with Peak Vision. Some of you may have heard of it. We're a social enterprise, and we've got a software that we've developed and a platform we've developed that helps to identify and track patients along the whole journey from when they begin in the field, so in communities and schools, etc. So, and I can share a bit more about that. You can go on the website and have a look. But I think when it comes to career and profession and sort of your journeys, and everyone who's spoken before me has said this, like, it's so important to really believe in what you're doing, find a good mentor, have a passion, and look beyond what you're already doing. You know, as students, you're right now probably in the thick and depths of all this clinical knowledge and theory and stuff. But just remember, our profession is to help people to see. And so you're dealing with people all the time. So you've got to like people. You know, really learn to like people and understand people. You know, when a patient sits in front of you, and that's why I tell people why I do public health, because when a patient sits in front of me, you have to remember that they didn't just appear out of nowhere on your chair. They had to do a journey to get there to you, whatever that journey was. They're dealing with probably their own, you know, life circumstances to get to you. So you have to really try and understand people. And that's 50% of what our service is. Once you understand a patient, what their needs are, what their life circumstances are, the rest of it is clinical knowledge. And sometimes I say this, and I shouldn't say this, I know this is being recorded, but I think you can teach a monkey to refract. We're not just refractionists, right? We are professional healthcare professionals, right? Our job is not just to refract. Our job is to understand a patient holistically. And that's where in optometry, I think there's a big gap. We've forgotten that our patients are holistic. We have to understand them in that way. And that's the only way that we can then make a difference. And so for me, the public health part came because I thought, I'm dealing with one person in this room, but actually there's hundreds of more people out there that are not reaching me. And so I need to understand why they're not reaching me and how can we help them. And so, you know, I really tell you to kind of dig deep. We all do have a passion. And it doesn't mean you all need to leave your practices and go and change your life path and careers after this degree. It just means you find meaning in what you do. And I think once you find that, this journey becomes a lot easier. I'll stop now because I realize and I can say lots, but I'm sure there's lots of questions and discussions to be had.
Sure. Thank you so much, Priya. I appreciate you sharing those insights. And I think one of the things I'd like to pull out from what you just said is that, you know, as optometry clinicians, we deal with people. And I've seen over the course of my career as an optometric educator that not everybody is cut out to deal with people. Not everybody likes working with people, and that's okay. We all have different personalities. We all wired differently. But if you find yourself training in a clinical profession and you're not a people's person and you don't like to communicate with people, find a path where you can still make a difference, where you don't have to be patient-facing. You can still impact the profession and clinical optometry working behind a screen or in an office or by yourself. You don't have to be in a clinical consulting room. So don't beat yourself up about the fact that maybe you just don't like talking all day and, you know, putting a smile on your face to greet every person that comes into your chair every half an hour. If you're not wired that way, that's okay. Find out what floats your boat. Find out what is going to make you excited every day. It could be developing an app for something that solves something in the eye care industry, right? But find your thing. And that's what I said. I noticed it being in health professions education that we're not focusing on the people behind it, the trainee, the person behind the trainee, because everybody's personality, interests, etc., is different. So it's not the end of the world. At least 3 of the panelists today, myself included, did not choose optometry as a professional path, but made a success of our careers in optometry because we looked for opportunity, looked for ways to make an impact, looked for ways to align our professions with our interests and strengths so that we can make an impact. And so that's really the overarching message of today's, sort of just giving you a broad snapshot of things people have done, moving from clinical optometry to make an impact in their spaces. So perhaps at this point, before I hand over to Apaleli for a Q&A session, is just to ask our panelists, what, from your vantage point and where you're at, what do you think, what career growth opportunities exist in the spaces in which you work for optometrists, knowing where policy is going, how technology is developing, how research is evolving, etc. If you can give some insights, and perhaps that can be bait for someone who's liked what you've heard and wants to know what are some of the next steps they could pursue. So just an open question.
I can go first.
Yeah,
again.
sure, Priya. Thanks.
I think there's a real shift with technology here. And we need to embrace it. I know it's quite scary thinking that part of a refraction can be done by technology. Now, I mean, I don't know what it's like at the moment on the continent, but it's certainly in the UK, we are starting to see optometrists that are sitting at home behind their computer, and patients are walking into a practice and having some sort of refraction being done, telerefraction being done. Now it's quite scary thinking about it because it will require all sorts of different regulations, and we will have to change the way we work. But even more important, that we embrace this technology and it's done on our own terms. So, you know, if these sort of opportunities are presenting to you, or you're hearing about telerefraction and some sort of self-refraction and AI-based deep learning when it comes to these even screening of retinal images, get involved. Like, because if we are involved, then we can drive it the way we want as an optometrist. But if we're not involved and we're taking a step back and saying, no, this is all just too much and this is not how it should be, then the decisions that are going to be made and how this technology is going to be rolled out is not going to be on our terms. And so I've also had to come to terms with it and accept that actually, maybe it's okay. Because if it's done with the right intentions, has the right evidence, and it's been researched well, then maybe there is a place for it. So let's start thinking about it. If your university offers extra modules or anything on AI or technology, take it, because it's going to come so much more useful later on. Even if it's not to do with us, just understand and what it really means. So I think there's a real opportunity there. I mean, there's the obvious ones where, optometrists are still required. And like I will keep repeating, we're not just refractionists, so don't let anyone tell you that's what you are. You've studied so hard, you've learned so much other clinical knowledge. Make sure you're always putting that into practice and not letting that part of your professional career be something that's just something on the side. Get involved in all of that, because if you look at the world, the number of people that are becoming diabetic, right? They're going to need holistic care. We need to look after their eyes along with their other organs, but their eyes are really important. So start thinking about that, that where can we fit in beyond just the eyes?
I love that. Thanks, Priya. Just to add on to what you said, two things that I saw last week. I came across just a news post on Facebook or Google News or something like that. Two young, I don't even know, they look like high school girls, twins. I think they were twin sisters who had witnessed a traumatic incident, an accident or something like that, and then had taken their family member to the hospital to get an x-ray, and there was just so much challenges and such a time lag to actually get the x-ray. And they had an idea, what if we just could look from the outside with a pair of glasses and be able to see? And so they are not even optometrists, but they're working on a solution to have x-ray glasses, just put it on and be able to see. And I thought, wow, use optometry in these spaces. And I think Meta also released some pair of AI glasses that they're now testing. And I thought we need to be in these spaces. As you said, if these developments happen without the profession of optometry, even just researching the implications of these, then we're not going to have a voice at the table. So there's so many opportunities now, and just find one, pick one and run with it and sort of make an impact there. So Obi, Rudine, if you've got any insights, and Nele, final insights to share on career opportunities you see from your vantage point that you can share with the audience today.
I don't mind going ahead.
Sure, Sanele.
I think just to also just sort of go off with what Dr. Priya was mentioning as well. I think, it's very important for us to also sort of have a very clear professional identity, right? So, um, that's very, very important. And again, I also talk more on the research side because that's usually the space that I'm in. But I am realizing that, there's really not much work that has been done looking at, professional identity in relation to optometry as well. We found a lot of studies are done within the medical profession, a lot of nursing professions and whatnot. But again, we're looking at it from the optometry context and looking at how very complex our discipline is, and also the contextual factors as well that could be affecting our profession in different contexts. Is very important that for us sort of have that very clear professional identity and being staying true to who you are and understanding your skills and values and beliefs, because again, that will shape as well how you are as an optometrist, right? So I think that's really the first point that I would like to look into. Secondly, again, goes back to the type of research that I do as well. I always say to my students that if you are dispensing, of course, as Dr. Priz mentioned, you have a patient in front of you. And again, it's very important that you also now develop certain cultural competence skills, which you can use to communicate with your patient. If your patient does not understand, if there is a miscommunication between you and your patient will not necessarily follow your treatment plan. They will not understand and how to wear multifocal lenses. They will not understand how to clean their contact lenses because again, there was that miscommunication now happening there in between. So it's very important that, you look at a patient again, holistically, and again, sort of take the patient's culture into account when you are now providing the optical dispensing care, that you need to provide to your patient and whatnot. Because again, as I think Rudine mentioned earlier, if the dispensing is incorrect, the patient will obviously then come back. And then usually 90% of the time, we tend to take the patient into the refraction room and maybe because we think the refraction is incorrect, whereas no, maybe the patient does not understand how a multifocal lens is designed and whatnot. So now you just come up to the level and explain to them at a very clear way. And just to also end off there, lastly, I think, it's very important to also take that leap of faith, I think. Diane knows me at this point. I think every single time I do something, I bother her so much because, again, she is one of my mentors. And also, if any paper that I've published, I think I send it to her before, it's available out there. So it's very important sort of obviously, yes, to have your mentor, to take that leap of faith and also just to have somebody also just, behind you as well, backing you up and supporting whatever ideas that you have. And again, no idea is not perfect. No idea is not so good, So if you remember back when I sent you that long text, I think it was a voice note, Diane, back in 2020, I think. Now looking at where we are now, 5 years later, we're actually now I've published on this work now and whatnot. So no idea is not good enough. So I always say just take that leap of faith. Try sort of obviously, network in much way in whatever sense that you can. And yeah. So if again you want to sort of be in an academic space, again, in South Africa, a master's is quite necessary. And you do not have to do a master's in optometry. Let me just also say that as well. I did a master's in health professions education. I think Priya also mentioned something on community eye health. So, there's so many degrees out there that you can, research on and find out what you can, study and how you can obviously invest in yourself in such a way that, you can and be the best optom that you can be at a later stage. So I think, yeah, let me leave it at that. Then I'll let my other colleagues continue. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Anele. Over to you, Obi. I saw you wanted to just share some final thoughts.
Yes, thank you so much. I just wanted to say, get involved. Don't wait for things to happen to you. Get involved in the industry beyond your university. There's so many organizations out there, and information and access to different institutions, companies, business leaders has never been as easy as it is today. So you have ideas as a young student, get help, get support, put it out there. But the best way to do that is by getting involved. And how do you get involved? get on LinkedIn and connect with leaders and reach out to them to say, hey, can I come and learn this from you? Can I come and help you with this? Can I come and be in your presence for the next 2 to 3 weeks and do this? And don't only think about it from your own country point of view. Look at opportunities that can get you out of your country for you to learn new ideas, access opportunities that you can then bring back into the respective country that you are in. But for me, it's get involved. As students, we used to get involved. Every optometry every optometry profession has a professional body. As students, you need to be asking the representative body in your country, how can you get involved as a young optometrist? Don't see only getting access to industry leaders when you are a professional, or getting involved only when you are a professional. I remember, if I look back, the first 10 conferences that I ever attended, I attended free of charge, simply because I was getting involved. If there's a conference coming up in South Africa on contact lenses, I would reach out to the Contact Lens Society and reach out to how can I get involved as a student and be able to be a runner at the conference. If there's a conference taking place in Namibia, I'll find out how can I get involved as a young person in being a runner in that particular conference. So for me, it's just a matter of, with the multitude of opportunities that are existing in the industry here, right here in the continent and beyond, just get involved. And the quickest way to get involved, build the networks, build eye care community. I'm surprised if I'm looking at my phone and I'm asking the other panelists, are the students that are already connected with us tonight following you? Because here's one thing that I find quite interesting in the times that we're living in. When I was doing first year, I had no access to the person who has been in the industry for 30 years. You guys do. So when we leave this conference today, for example, our pages should be flooded with you guys connecting with us and us connecting with you guys, so that there can be a transference of opportunities, ideas, sharing of knowledge, because you guys are the ones that are going to take optometry to an even further level than what it's already do. When we post this event, we should all be running faster with more passion than Dr. Levi. Dr. Levi should be put under pressure. Whereas right now, if I think about it in the industry, he's running faster and further than all of us. And it's supposed to be us as young people, and you guys more specifically, who can be able to push the boundaries beyond Dr. Levi. I'll ask myself, he's married, he's got a family and so forth. Where does he have the time to do the stuff that he has been doing? So it's a matter of young people getting involved right now with urgency. Thank you.
Thanks, Obi. Yeah, really appreciate that. And just to add on to that, don't think of what's in it for me in terms of monetary value. Obi and Priya spoke about volunteering. And I remember when I was looking to also pivot and grow my career, it's like I would also take any opportunity to volunteer, to go and do something. And sadly, when I was academic lead of optometry at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and we wanted to give opportunities to young clinicians to come into the clinic to supervise students and potentially be exposed to having an academic career, it was all about how much am I going to get paid per hour? No, I can't come because I'll get paid more if I do a locum. But here's a career growth opportunity that could have taken them elsewhere. They were not really happy in private practice, but they were not prepared to come for perhaps just a little less than what they were earning doing locums, and missed out on an opportunity to grow their career in a different way, perhaps not in academia, but through that networking and through that educational exposure could have created other opportunities. So don't let money be your motivating factor. When you pursue your passion, eventually the money will come. And honestly, the reward you get from doing the work you love is more than any money can pay you. You can earn money doing something you're not passionate about, but then you're still unhappy, right? So follow the passion, like all of our panelists have said today. Radine, any final thoughts from yourself?
Yes, Dr. And I just wanted to add, I love what Dr. Priya said. You know, we as optometrists are not refractionists. And I really want to build out on that a little bit. So we find that I'm also involved with a lot of first year optometry students, you know, a first year qualified optometrists, let me rather say that, when they are finished now with their studies after 4 years. And I'm sometimes a little bit disappointed because I know that they come from a specific university. I know the quality of education that they've been through. And somehow they so easily leave it behind. I don't know. I don't know how to put it. Everything that you've learned in your 4th years, you must put into every patient that you see. It's almost like maybe I was like that as well. I don't know, possibly, most possibly. But you must remember that the things that you are learning, you need to find a way to incorporate all of that knowledge for each person that you see every day. Don't just do pathology now and, just to get it behind you so that you can become an optometrist. Use that information every day when you see a patient. Don't be just someone that does binocular vision and, I need to remember these things for my year-end examination. Take that information, understand it well enough to incorporate it when you are seeing people. That is when you become a good optometrist. We get so much good educational centers. I mean, the University of the Free State with Dr. Rasingani, with the University of, Johannesburg with Mariki Richter. These are super people. Why do we get first-year optometrists that do not do a full-on examination with binocular vision, with the case history, with additional information that I want from this patient to holistically, like Dr. Priya said, holistically look at this person? Why do we not get that? Why? Is it the world of optometry that's making the students like that? It's sad if that is happening. But we as optometrists must be proud of our 4 years of education, and we must take all of that information and implement it every day into each patient. Do not just do a refraction. That's what I can just say, because that's unfortunately my experience that I get, and it saddens me because we need to look after our profession. We need to keep it at a high level.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Radine. I think that's such a nice point to end off our panelists' input. And just to say before I hand over to Apalele that the future of optometry is in your hands, the future of optometry in Africa. I think you've got some nuggets from the panelists today. Identify the opportunities that are around you, identify your passion, and find the path for you to make a contribution to growing this wonderful profession on the continent. So Apalele, over to you. It's been an absolute pleasure to chair this session and the discussion amongst panelists. And I think I've dropped my LinkedIn URL in the comments, and if other panelists want to do that as well, and you're welcome to follow Life Beyond Clinical Practice on the different social media platforms if you want to hear more professional development content. Thanks, Apalele, over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Diane. Thank you. And I think that I am talking for, or rather I'm thanking for all the students that have joined in today. I'm pretty sure we'll be leaving more encouraged, not only to study, to finish the degree that we're doing, but also to see the importance and to see the impact of the arena that we step into. And now we have a vast knowledge. We've heard a lot of terms and new terms maybe that we've never heard before. Maybe the first year optometrist has never heard the universal health coverage. Now we can go in and look at that and read up on that and what it entails to us. But just before we go to the Q&A, I'm going to just give briefly to Dr. Adaku Israel Obia to do the World Sight Day for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Greetings, everyone. I'm so excited. Like I'm blown away this evening. Thank you so much, Dr. Diane, Rudin, Obi, Priya, and every panelist. Is really an amazing time. So I would be talking about, my name is Dr. Adaku Obia, an optometrist in Nigeria, and I work with Zital Eye Clinic here in Abuja. And I would be talking about the World Sight Day initiative. Sure, as AFOS, we always have been on the watch to do something incredible, and the World Sight Day wouldn't be left out. Now for the World Sight Day, what is our goal as AFOS in this World Sight Day? Here, our goal is to increase awareness. By awareness, we are not just making noise or shouting of World Sight Day, World Sight Day. We have the theme as Love Your Eyes Kids. Now, in this theme, increasing the awareness, we really need to enlighten the public on the importance of good eyesight and vision, especially with regards to our children. So the second thing is we need to encourage routine eye examination, especially in children. How are we going to encourage this routine eye examination? We are going to do this through our awareness, because in this awareness, we are going to leave a mandate to action, a mandate with an action. This action is that the parents, the guardian of these children, they should make their way to always take them to the eye clinic or hospitals for a comprehensive routine eye examination. Now for the online campaign, how are we going to get involved in this online campaign? This is where a postcard comes in. Right now, AFOS has designed a postcard, and I will be talking about that as I go on in this discussion, because that postcard is what each and every one of us, we're going to put our pictures on the postcard with a compelling statement. That compelling statement is what goes out to the public there with a conviction that, oh, this is actually what it is for the World Sight Day. And for the postcard, different schools already on WhatsApp discussions, they've started bringing in their quotes, their statements. And I would also, when I get to that, I would discuss how we're going to do that. Now, the target audience. We said the general public. Of course, for this World Sight Day, our target is everyone must get involved. Despite we are saying love your eyes kids, or the vision is for children, the persons that are going to be highly involved in this is the parents and guardians of these children, because when they are involved, that is when our mission for the World Sight Day would really be accomplished. Now, the target audience, how do we mean by the educational institutions? Let's not forget that most of these vision and sight problems are being first detected most of the time in these preschool children. And in school, their teachers or their guardians will always talk about their poor performances, or maybe some of the things they've discovered, they observed in this child in the classes. So our educational institutions are going to be one of the target audience in the World Sight Day. In the World Sight Day awareness we're going to be creating. Now, the healthcare practitioners, of course, we are not just left alone as optometrists. Every healthcare practitioner is a must, should get involved in the awareness. How do we talk about the policymakers? Of course, the policymakers, they are the ones that implement, they are the ones that put up that implement most of the laws in our countries or in our states. So if we are able, through this awareness, get the audience of these policymakers. Imagine if the policymakers implement that, okay, there's going to be a compulsory, or there's going to be this mandatory preschool eye care assessment. It's going to go a long way to help us in detection, as well providing solutions to really help these children. Now, if you look at the screen, you see we have, this is Introduction to the World Sight Day Initiative. Exactly what you see on the screen is a postcard designed by AFOS. AFOS designed this postcard. On this postcard, it has the World Sight Day with the theme Love Your Eyes Kids. Now, this is the postcard that each and every one of us is going to have. This postcard is going to be sent to everyone with a link. Now, all you need to do is you click on the link. Okay, this is the instruction on how we're going to go. When you get the link to this postcard, you download the frame using the link provided, and then you insert your picture and the meaningful quote. Remember, it must be a compelling statement or quote related to the eye health or vision of children. And then you upload the frame picture, the slide. Then you upload this frame picture on your social media platform with the appropriate hashtags. We're going to have hashtag World Sight Day, hashtag Love Your Kids, hashtag etc. So this is a great way to show your support and help spread awareness for World Sight Day. Now, for the compelling statements we're going to be putting, already we started something with different representatives from And what it's all about is that different optometry schools across Africa is to submit a statement, that is a phrase. And how we're going to use this phrase is, we're going to be using it in a random form. How do I mean? If Abia State University has submitted their statement, and then we have a statement from, let's say, from an optometry school in Kenya, we are going to be doing an online balloting. So already the statements are written out in numbers. We have numbers 1, 2, 3. Number 1 is having a statement. Number 2 has a statement. Number 3 has a statement. Okay, now for the online balloting, we are going to throw out numbers on the WhatsApp group. Each of the school representatives is going to click, you just pick up a number. When you pick a number, we just get to that, we just go to the reference and then check the quotes that falls into the number you have selected. And then whatever you pick there, that is what your school is going to use for their, their awareness or their postcard. So we invited schools to submit meaningful phrases. Of course, we did that, and quotes. And that is with the team what they. These phrases will be randomly assigned to different schools for use in their awareness campaign. By sharing these phrases, we aim to unify our message and create a collective voice for eye health. That is exactly what we are doing. So to ensure fairness, we would conduct an online balloting process. Each phrase will be assigned a unique number, and representatives from each school will pick a number to randomly select a phrase. This adds a fun and engaging way to get everyone involved in this initiative for the World Sight Day. So, further things and questions, we already have a WhatsApp platform for AFOS as well, the students. So I really applaud us for coming together in the spirit of unity to support the World Sight Day. There is no doubt optometry in Africa is going beyond the next level. So let's remain dynamic and committed to the vision and mission of AFOS, and together we can make a significant impact by spreading awareness about the importance of eye health and preventing blindness. Thank you so much, and God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Doctor. We appreciate the information insight about the World Sight World Sight Day that is coming up. Right now, we are going to take questions, and our panelists are here to answer the questions. So in the group chat, I believe a colleague is just going to assist me with the Q&A session, as the chat has been quite active, which is amazing, and we appreciate the attendance.
Thanks, Apalele. I don't see any questions right now, but just to say that Reshma and Dr. Priya had to hop off because they had other commitments, but I'm still here, and Obi and Sanele, if there are any specific questions that we can answer. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Diane. I'm also just looking through, and also my EXCO team, some of them were writing exams and they were busy, so they could only join a bit later. I'm glad they're here now, and I'm also not seeing any questions, meaning that people are encouraged.
I have
and
one question, please.
Oh,
One
there it is.
question.
Yes. Yes, Stanley, you can go ahead.
My name is Amolo Stanley from Masindemelo University of Science and Technology, that's in Kenya, a student optometrist. My question was addressed to Dr. Priya. Yeah, she had mentioned something about volunteering, and she had said that our career is not entirely built on volunteering. So my question is that to what extent should we volunteer? Because one of the panelists also had hinted that volunteering is also important in getting experience or opens you up to opportunities. So to what extent should we volunteer, or to what point do we say that this is enough volunteering, now I want to do something else for my career? Yeah.
Thanks, Amolo. So just to answer that, so volunteering is really a part to, I think, two main things. One, identifying what it is you want to do, whether this thing that you're volunteering for is what you're looking for, or is part of the stepping stones towards getting to where you want to with your career. And secondly, to network. So it's not like you're just going to be a perpetual volunteer because you just want to do something that makes you feel good for that time. You have to be strategic about what volunteering opportunities you go for. Firstly, it's like almost a proof of concepts. You're going to test, is this really what I want to do? Is this really what I'm passionate about? Is there really opportunity in this thing that I've identified? And secondly, how can I build my network? Because through building a network in those spaces, you will then be able to grow your career, whether it's through finding scholarships, getting employment, etc. But it creates opportunity for you to network with other professionals in that space who can then help you to achieve your career objectives. I hope that sort of answered your question, and the other panelists can add to that if need be.
Dr. Diane, I would also like to add on that. I'll give two examples. For example, number one, I did it in preparation for today. I actually Googled optometry practices in a certain area, and a list of 15 optometric practices came up. And then I went into their websites and I looked on their websites. Out of that 15 that had actual websites, 8 of them on their website said they've got newsletters, monthly newsletter. When I clicked on that, nothing came up. So I then did a short presentation offering to write newsletters for those practices. And I put my rate and I gave them 12 newsletters that with the 12 topics that we can start between 1st November up until end of October 2025. So in me volunteering, I put my rates, I put how much I will charge per article, and I also committed that they will have all 12 articles readily available for the whole year already. So that is a form of volunteer that it took me about 30 minutes to Google. List of practices came up. I went into their websites and I looked at the opportunity that I could identify. That's one way. One thing that I used to do as a student, I used to volunteer to be a runner at conferences. Today, I get to charge to speak at different, or I get paid to speak at different conferences, local and internationally. That did not just come about randomly. And I was able to charge what I can charge or get paid what I wanted to get paid simply because every time I was attending conferences as a student, I was learning what could be made or what could be done differently to make that particular conference better the next time. So I was building up a sort of like a business case for tomorrow when I come and say, I want to be a speaker and this is the reason why I'll be speaking and this is what I'll be able to contribute. I had history of having attended a few conferences where I could identify, oh, wait a minute, the conference could have been better in this way, in that way. The speakers did this instead of this. The presentations could have been this or that. Third option, if you go on social media and you look at optometric practices, for example, in your particular country, we've got platforms such as Canva that are available. You can literally come up with different templates that you can customize and then look at optometric practices where you can offer your services to run their social media. So that's just as a young person who's already utilizing social media to your advantage. Why not use it from a professional point of view where you can say, wait a minute, I've got a good following of people on social media, but how do I convert this into an optometry following? Wait a minute, I've got 3,000 followers on Instagram. How can I connect this number of followers with practices that are trying to build up their social media? I can give you a list of examples that you can come up with, but I just gave you 3 now of things that you can do immediately when we leave this conference.
Thanks, Obi. Any more questions that we can answer?
Then I think there's no other questions as well.
Thank you, Dr. Levi. Yes, because I have to sign off now. I've got to head off on a road trip. But thank you so much for having me host the panel discussion. It's been an absolute pleasure to share our insights with students and optometrists from across the continent and elsewhere in the world. And yeah, looking forward to connecting for future events as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Diane, for the amazing discussion that really empowered the African students on the different paths we can take. And we will surely follow the podcast and listen to more negative wisdom, as you have put it. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you, Apolele. I appreciate it. And thanks to everyone for joining. Bye.
Bye, Doctor.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.